I don't believe in sales. I don't think it works. So I think a lot of recruiters get on and they're like selling, selling, selling. I don't think that puts the candidate at ease or something, or makes them tell you the real things. I think it makes them just initially distrustful.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of 10x Recruiting, brought to you by MetaView. Today is one of my favorite episodes we've ever done, Sile. How are you, man? It's good to see you.
I'm excellent. How are you?
I'm 11 out of 10 today, man.
11 out of 10.
Yeah.
You know that's not possible, right?
I mean, I make the rules, so it's entirely possible. All right, let's get to it. So today I talked to Ted Maguire. Ted Maguire runs his own exec recruiting firm called Opal. Prior to Opal, he was Uber and Khosla's primary recruiter at Khosla Ventures, and then he was on the executive recruiting team at Uber. So this episode is a straight banger. What were your takeaways?
The thing that I basically strongly agree with, or I guess like would encourage people to listen to from what Ted said, is just around getting to the point where you can be the type of consultant, for want of a better word, that challenges clients. Like in sales, you have this sort of concept of like doing a challenger sale, like actually challenging the thinking of your clients. And I think it just always leads to better. I think it makes even more sense in the executive recruiting context because it is such a nuanced, it's going to come down to like a high stakes, very nuanced, one-way door decision. And so I think that just works really well. I think the crease is you've got to be careful not to go too far because you can also be really, sometimes if you're working with someone and I'm like really, my top priority is hiring this VP of whatever, you just need to go some to command the respect of the person such that you can challenge them. So I think that's like that's the art there is how do you get to that level? Because you don't want to just be challenging things for challenging sake, but you need to understand the craft and the client well enough to actually be able to challenge. But I guess what my point is, you also don't want to be on the side of just doing whatever your client says. Because I know when I'm doing executive recruiting, it's almost always for a type of person I've never hired before. Like I don't want people to just actually go with what I'm thinking because I'm making it up. So that's what really resonates with me about Ted's approach.
Yeah, it should be part of what you're paying for. Totally agree with you. In full honesty, it was very challenging for me to boil down like 2 to 3 takeaways. So I will caveat these two with, these are good, but like the whole show is awesome. The first one for me is Ted has literally the best executive search process I've ever seen. And I'm an executive recruiter. His process goes from mapping the 1,000 to 4,000 potential candidates that could be a fit for this job to then stack ranking every single person on that map. And he does it in a 1 to 4 way, which you should listen to the show to learn more about. He then starts, which I think is really interesting, with the second tier candidates while the client gets calibrated, because we've all been a part of an initial search to where a CEO doesn't know what they're optimized for. And Ted's take is you do not get a second chance with the best candidates. And then after they go through those, they get a couple of reps together. They go hard after the tier ones, of which there's typically never 10. I've seen this process over the course of the last few years. I think Ted's like really refined it even more. He gives you an inside look. You should watch for that. The other takeaway I have is that bullshitting only works at low to mid levels of the game. So the way Ted describes it is bullshitting has a declining return as you move up the ladder. And the most important thing top executives and top CEOs want is truth. And getting to truth matters. This goes a little bit to your takeaway. But honesty isn't just like this moral preference. Like truth actually is a competitive advantage. And Ted talks about why he is insanely truthful. You will hear it in his voice. This is why me and Ted are really great friends. We've been friends for years. So I do think this is one of the best episodes we've ever done. This is why you come to 10x Recruiting. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one as much as I did. Without further ado, here's my episode with Ted. This is 10x Recruiting, a podcast from MetaView. Let's get after it.
I'm going to do this podcast in Spanish.
Do you speak Spanish?
Not well.
Oh, I was like, dude, that's...
Bienvenidos.
Okay. So Ted, who is Vinod Khosla and what is your relationship with him?
Yeah, he's a venture capitalist. He's in Palo Alto. He founded Sun Microsystems. He was a partner at Kleiner Perkins, and then he was a partner at his own firm, which is Khosla Ventures.
Okay. And how did you meet him and what was the relationship?
I helped start the executive search team at Uber. I was like 24. I was coming out of Aegon Zender, which is like one of the bigger executive search firms. And he basically heard, I think through Aaron Schilkraut, who was a founder that one of the other partners had worked with, Samir, that, yeah, there's like a 25, 26-year-old doing VP searches at Uber. And that's how I met him. And then eventually worked at the firm.
What was it like working with him?
I think he's hardcore. I think he's really smart. He actually spends probably 30% of his net time doing recruiting, which I'd say is more than most venture capitalists. And he's a good recruiter. He's a really good recruiter. He's good at selling like the bigger vision of the company. I mean, I think the most impressive thing about him is the portfolio is pretty broad. It's like in biotech, it's consumer, there's enterprise SaaS. I think he was like in the seed round of OpenAI. So he like during the day will cross domains, but is pretty deep in all those domains. And then a lot of the partners at the firm are specialists in those domains. Like Sven is like a PhD, I don't know, in robotics or something like that from Stanford. But like he would talk to Sven about robotics in a way that was, highly credible.
Interesting. Yeah. He's also now a part owner of the Seattle Seahawks, which I hope he runs into the ground.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. So who did you like? What is it like being an executive recruiter at a venture firm? Like, are you recruiting for the firm? Are you recruiting for portfolio companies? Like, what are you doing there?
Yeah, you do both. I did searches for the portfolio companies for sure. I mean, you can think of it like consulting. I thought of it as consulting of sorts. The firm called it Venture Assistance, which is similar. And then I also did do searches for the actual fund. So like I placed a couple investors, I placed a couple operating partners, that sort of thing. But the firm itself, when I was there, was, I don't know, 30 people, 35 people. So it's not a huge team.
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of understating Vinod a little bit. Like he's on the Midas list, one of the best investors of all time, definitely known for being like a very intense personality. What is it like with you? Because you and I have worked together a little bit. What is it with you that you can handle like those types of people and that you're like a heat-seeking missile for pain?
I don't know. I don't get that rattled, I guess. The Uber experience I had was pretty hardcore, I would say. It was like 2016 to 2019. It was basically Travis to Dara transition. And I had 4 or 5 bosses over 3 years. Like it was highly chaotic. I don't know. I did respect him, and I think that helped a lot, And I don't know, he really did build it himself. Like imagine growing up in a different country in a different language and then moving to a different country that speaks a different language and becoming a billionaire. That's what he did. Like that's ridiculous to do, So I had a lot of respect for it.
He also coined the term, the team you build is the company you build. And what you're saying is like, it actually does feel like he lived it every day.
He's pretty sincere, and what he says is what he believes. I think he's more honest than most venture capitalists. And yeah, I mean, it's still relevant, even with all this AI stuff, who's actually running the company and what they actually decide and the culture of that company. I mean, all that stuff's hyper relevant. And yeah, I think it massively correlated to success.
Okay. So now you run your own firm called Opal. You guys, I think you guys have the best executive search process I've ever seen. Can you describe that process?
Yeah, I would love to show you lists, but they're all real lists. So I would need to like clean them and not, I don't know, I feel like that'd be rude. But the idea is like, imagine you really cared and you wanted to be thorough. And I'd say I take like a pretty highly analytical or like scientific process to this. But what you do is you do a full intake. So you figure out like, what is the search? And like as a high amount of detail, not just like a sketch. Like, what do you actually want this person to do? What does success look like in 6 months? What does it look like in a year? Why now? Like you ask like a lot of questions. You talk to multiple members of the team. You figure out like a real role spec. And then you say, well, what are all the companies where people would have developed relevant requisite experience for the specific role? And you basically create all these different company mappings from like PitchBooks or Crunchbase or CapIQ, like these company databases. You then rank all of the companies in terms of most relevant to least relevant. And then you go through and systematically map every single relevant executive from those companies in rank order, so that as you're building out the list, it's like most relevant people are found first. And then there's like a decay curve sort of thing as you go further out into the list. And then all the people get a ranking. And that takes like 6 to 8 weeks. I have like 2 full-time researchers that do that. And then I have like 2 directors that do the outreach and do the sourcing and that sort of thing. But those lists are 1,000 to 2,000. One of them was 4,000 people. But the idea is that everyone's looking for some sort of purple unicorn. For any given search, there might be 8 of them, 20 of them, 30 maybe. It's not 100, right? And we basically call those ones. So one is like on paper, or given that we know them or someone knows them, like this person is actually perfect. They have all the things. We're making no trade-offs. They have all the things. It's a tiny, tiny percentage of the total mapping. And then from there, it's like 1.5. So it's like they have 1 or 2 trade-offs. 2s mean they have like a few trade-offs. 2.5s, and it goes down to 4. Most of the list is 3s and 4s. There's like some 2s, maybe like 100 or 200, 50 1.5s probably, depending on the search. And then like 10 ones, something like that for like a 2,000 person list. But the idea of this is like you can comprehensively show the client in a way that's transparent and like highly data oriented. If you want to hire this exact profile, here are all the people, so that there's like no room for like, well, what about this guy? Or what about this person? And then it makes it so that the search is like highly concrete, like so that there's not some like hand wavy recruiter thing where you're just randomly showing up with 10 people every week. And also gives you leverage with the client to be like, I can't make people. You can't make people. This is your list. This is it. Now let's get tactical about like, how do we recruit them? What do they want? Is our value proposition good enough? But it basically makes it about as scientific as you can and as tactical and transparent as you can. And that forces like very honest conversations that, generally lead to a successful hire.
Working with you, Ted, you're like one of the few people like I really learn from. Your process enables like the truth. That's the way that I frame it, is like, this is just what the world is, but it takes a shit ton of work on the front end for you guys to do that, right? Like that research process, like that's not easy.
I would say it also works like always. Like, so our approach is like, we like to go deep with a company. Like, I don't want to be like a third party mercenary recruiter. I don't think that's very fun. I would probably make more money if I like only did Series C chief product officer searches or something like that. But I like to go deep with a company. I like to actually help build companies. And you can apply that process to GC searches, CRO searches, CPO searches, end searches. Like it's the same thing every time.
So we share that philosophy that I think actually the best recruiters steep with a company. Like they get to know the players, they get to know the culture, they get to know the lingo. And the more time that you spend with them, the better tuned you are to the type of candidate that will be successful there. But modern executive search doesn't actually practice that, right? It's like, well, you're the engineering guy, and then the sales gal is over there, and then the product guy is over here, and you should use different firms for different searches. Why do you do it differently?
I think this is the whole thing. So a lot of it has to do with pitching. And I actually think the root of it is that a lot of people over rationalize the process, which is weird because I take a hyper rational approach to it. But it's like assuming that the guy that does all the sales searches and knows the sales network will actually make the best possible placement, which if that were true, he would be closing searches like every 6 weeks. And they take 3 to 6 months, just like they take with everyone else. So
Right.
it's just not true. It's like a pitch. It's mostly because that process wins pitches, and then the service market conforms to where the money goes, sort of thing. I just don't think it's true. Like, I don't think, one, they get lazy because they're like, they know 15 people and they're trying to place their buddy at a company, and like, it's just lazy. Like, they don't actually do the full mapping, or they're reusing mappings that are not correct from company to company. I also just don't like, at least 50% of a successful placement is like culture, interpersonal fit, vibe, style, orientation to work, philosophy about why they're working. Like, do they work for money? Like, a lot of it's just interpersonal fit matching stuff. You also need to like get real enough with a client that they tell you the real reasons or their real thoughts. And if you're staying at this like high level professional sort of thing, you'll never know the real reasons. And then you won't do a very good job actually finding the right person because you're looking for the wrong things. They're like, I didn't like this person because of ABC, but it's actually DEF. And like, they're just not comfortable enough with you to tell you that. So it's like, as you get deeper with the client, you'll get to know the real reasons and then you can actually find them the right person.
So what you're describing is stated versus revealed preferences. And but you're working with primarily CEOs all day long who are the hiring manager. Why are they like, what's going on there with that human to where they're not able to articulate what actually matters?
I mean, this is a whole thing, but I think about this a lot when I talk to candidates. So it's like, I ask very direct questions. If anything, I ask like naive, simple questions, because I think those are actually the best questions to some degree versus some complicated thing. Like, what do you want and why? And like, they don't know. The fact that they're talking to me means they don't know. A random person emails them about a job and they're like, maybe. Like, if they really know what they wanted, that wouldn't even be possible. I think people genuinely don't know to some degree, or they're afraid to share their real opinion. But the genuinely not knowing thing is like, yeah, we can try to figure that out together. And then not afraid to share their real opinion, that we can solve for by like comfort and safe space, you know? It's really safe. Yeah, it's safe space to say whatever is true.
Yeah. I mean, when you're recruiting an executive, I think people kind of gloss over exec recruiting because it's just like, oh, it's like another form of recruiting. But when you're hiring executives, I mean, these are the people who hire the rest of the company. Like these are the people who are going to come in and have dramatic impact and dramatic leverage at the company. And so you're basically building a relationship with that person to where it's like, tell me your deepest, darkest thoughts on both sides. How do you think about like getting that trust with candidates? Because you do this mapping list, right? And then you don't know these people. You're going straight outbound. Like, what's it like working with you on the candidate side and how do you build trust with them?
I try to be hyper sincere and like hyper genuine. And I don't believe in sales. Like, I don't think it works. So I think a lot of recruiters get on and they're like selling, selling, selling. I don't think that puts the candidate at ease or something, or makes them tell you the real things. I think it makes them just initially distrustful. I believe in framing. I believe in telling a compelling story, but not sales, I guess, in such a direct way. I think that engenders a lot of trust. And I genuinely will just like help candidates. Like, if I don't think they're right for a search, or even if I do think they're right and they don't really want it, like, I never open the call with, here's the thing I have. I open the call with like, broadly speaking, what do you want? What's interesting to you? What's compelling to you? And then I see if what they actually tell me aligns with the search that I'm working on. And if it really doesn't, then I tell them that. And then they're not a candidate for the search. I don't really believe in selling that hard because what I'm looking for is like a natural fit or a close to natural fit. And that works a lot better than selling someone really hard and hoping that sales thing sticks, especially if it's like in contradiction with their stated goals.
So for those of you listening, like Ted is one of these people who I learned the most from. And you shared with me one time an example, like a call that you did with a candidate.
Mm-hmm.
And it blew my mind because it is like literally inverted on how you talk to candidates. Like you truly open the call with like, hey, I'm Ted. Like, what are you looking for? Like, what do you, and if you immediately put the onus on the candidate, where did that style come from? Because it is not what is taught in recruiting.
I don't know. But I read a lot of books. I read a lot of therapy books. Like, I read a lot of interpersonal stuff and I read a lot of negotiation stuff. Yeah, it comes down to like I think How to Make Friends and Influence People is correct. You just make everything about the other person. And I literally just try to be as useful as possible to everyone I'm on a call with at all times. And that certainly wouldn't be, hi, I'm a recruiter and I'm trying to place you in a role so I make money. Like, that's insane. So I just open with like genuinely being helpful as much as I can. And sure, if that benefits me, cool. But I want them to really feel that it's like I'm here to help in a real way, and I will help in a real way. And it does come back. Like it comes back. I'm like pretty rational, but there's some karmicness thing here that I think is real. That I do operate from the place of like, if you just send good stuff out, good stuff comes back, and that has been true. And then I don't believe in lying. Like I literally like either morally or strategically. If anything, mostly strategically or pragmatically, I don't think it works. I think it works in the short term. Eventually that plays out. And then you're not a trusted actor though. So no one trusts you. And trust is the foundation of all relationships. So I just don't lie. Like ever. I don't think it works anywhere in life, in any domain. I think I don't think it works.
This is why we're friends, Ted. Like, this is exactly why you and I are super tight, is because like you are the most earnest person I've ever worked with. And I've worked with a lot of people. And I find that like trust is in such short supply in today's society. And when I experience with you, it's like, oh, like I can just tell you everything, which like then you're going to tell me everything. And then there's just like the time it takes to get to truth is just condensed. It's so much shorter to do it that way. And it's honestly, it's like, it's how all relationships should be. But like what we have in recruiting mostly is people who they spew bullshit all day long. And they are trying to place someone as fast as possible. And you use the term immoral. And I think about this all the time now when I do exec search. It's like outside of who you marry, where you live, what you do for work is somewhere in that top 3. Like it's a huge part of your life and of your day. And you're placing these people all day long. And to your point, it's like, I don't know why more recruiters don't do it. Like, I think they're trying to, shine turds when it's just like, when you show people what it is, and they actually appreciate it much more.
Yeah, I think I learned this from working with Vinod, and then I've done a bunch of searches with like billionaire family office guys. I think when you get to higher levels of like the game or something, their bullshit detector is like so sophisticated and so many people want things from them all day that the only thing that works is like pure honesty, pure earnestness, like no wanting. I think I'm able to work with those people because I don't want anything from them. I don't. Like, I'll do this service, but like I'm not angling for anything. You know what I mean? I basically became convinced that like I'm never going to be smarter than a lot of these people. And bullshitting really only works at like low to mid levels of the game at all. Also, spiritually, it feels horrible. Like, I don't want to be that kind of person. I don't think it feels very good. Yeah, but I did have to learn over time. Like, I used to be more brutal, or like, I don't know, there was not enough grace in it, or like, I don't know. I was very honest, but it wasn't calibrated, and I would offend people. I think I'm much better at it now, and it's like not offensive, and I'm like, there's like scoping to it.
I also feel like I was that way. What did you do to like tune the calibrator to like speak the truth, but not hurt people's feelings with it?
There's a person on my team named Maeve who's been with me basically. Opal's about 4 years old. She's been there 3 years. She's helped a lot. Being like, Ted, you could rephrase that, or I don't know. There's been a lot of that. I think it's just maturity, or just like not wanting to hurt people. Yeah.
It takes a lot of reps to be able to speak truth, but not be a total prick all day long.
Yeah, I don't want to be a prick at all. But like, I don't think it's efficient to go around like doing half truths and like dancing around stuff all day. We're not gonna solve any problems that way.
Ashley Davis, who was my number 2 for forever, used to describe like festering as the worst problem. And when things fester, they always get worse. And the antidote to festering is truth.
Yeah, I mean, there's Jung's shadow and all that stuff. But yeah, I think like if you're trying to subvert something, it usually makes it worse. You're better off just letting it out,
Yeah, just let it rip. So the other thing with you is I think you're the hardest working recruiter that I know. So like on average, like how many calls a day do you take?
Like 10 hours a day usually of calls. I don't know. So at least.
So talk a little bit about how you have organized the firm around like your schedule, because like it's crazy. So like talk about the amount of searches, who's doing what internally, and what your role is.
Yeah, I mean, the setup now is I have a chief of staff who does like firm operations, does my email, will write a bunch of email replies, we'll do my calendar, we'll do like calendar scoping. But I have like a chief of staff that gives like a lot of leverage, like book flights, like like low leverage kind of tasks. I have 2 full-time researchers. All they do all day is build those lists. They're usually on like 5 searches each at a time, something like that, because not every list needs to be built. Once you build the list, you build the list. It takes like 6 weeks. They add like 90 to 110 people per day, something like that is their benchmark.
Oh my gosh.
And then Maeve and Cole are directors. They're client facing. They do the sourcing. They do a lot of the materials. They do a lot of the follow up with clients, but they do like a lot of the client facing work. And then I basically interview candidates all day and am on client calls all day. Mostly at this point, that's mostly what I do, where I'm like, whatever, making edits to the role spec or materials or something for the client. But yeah, I carry like 10 to 15 at a time at this point. We have a 100K retainer, and then we do like a 30% of first year candidate cash comp true up. I don't know. I also like working. I like being useful, and I'm not lazy. Like I am sincerely trying to like have my own validity and my own certainty that like these are the top 6 people for any given search. And then I can say that with honesty. And then I like, then you get into like, well, you actually have to hire someone or whatever it is. But until I have met enough people for a search, I don't feel like I can say that without, being honest about it. So I'll screen 60 to 80 people per search, but I'm doing 10 to 15 of them. So I have a cajillion calls.
It is truly crazy the amount of calls you have per day. Do you enjoy that? Like I just like being on calls all day long when you go from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. Like how do you even keep track of like what's going on?
I take notes. I'm pretty good at taking notes while talking. I enjoy it most days. If the candidates suck, then it sucks. But a lot of times they don't. A lot of the times they're interesting. And then part of our approach is like we're pretty cross industry, like cross stage. Most of the companies we're working with at this point are like 100 million plus in revenue. But like I'm learning stuff all day, which is interesting. And then, it's cross function. Like I just did 2 GC searches. I did the GC for modal, which is like AI infrastructure, and then the GC for cognition, which is, agentic coding. I'm not deep on GC. Like that was extremely interesting. And I was talking for cognition, like GCs of, the top public GCs for InTech. That's interesting. And honestly, the more senior you get, the cooler they are.
Exactly.
That's almost universally true. And if like I've done board searches, I've done CEO replacement searches where I'm like talking to like the founder of Lyft or whatever, or like those are the coolest ones. They're the nicest ones. They're the ones that like realize the potential utility I could have for them. If you do a director search or lower level stuff, they're like, they don't know what exec search is. They don't know that stuff. They don't know how well paid we are and stuff, that I'm not just like some guy. Like this is like a craft that I'm 12 years into this. I've done this every single day for 12 years, basically, since I was 22. Every day I've been on searches, like I'm highly specialized, they have no idea. They have no clue, but the board guys do, or like the CEOs do,
How do you get these people? Like, what's your secret to getting these people on the phone?
Cold outreach works pretty well, given my background at this point. It depends on the search. It's 2 things. If it's a very good search, one, no one cares who the recruiter is on some level. They don't care. Sort of they do, maybe, but they don't care. You're like a conduit, you're like a middleman to some degree. Some do, some don't. You can build relationships and stuff, but on some level, they don't care. If the search is really good, like you'll have a 60% response rate sort of thing. Like I did the NFX COO search, which is basically like the person running the operating partner group and stuff. Like that was literally a 60% response rate. Or like I just did Cognition's head of engineering search, like pretty high response rate there, that helps. two, it's like, yeah, if they don't respond, I talk to like 1,000 people a year, you know, like I have a large
At
network
least.
that
At least.
yeah, I think last year was 1,200. I have a huge network now. And then everything's just time. So like, I'll try a cold note. If that doesn't work, then you put in the time to like get introduced. But at this point, I can get introduced to like anyone. They may not want to talk, but like I can definitely at least get it so that they'll respond and be like, yeah, I totally am not leaving my job. And like, I appreciate it, sort of thing.
How much of the time are you spending on pulling that lever, which is like, so you go cold outbound, right? Say the list, we have 500 people on the list, but there's only,
I only spend time doing that for the once.
that's what I was just
Really,
about to ask.
yeah, it's only for those like top 20 people. I'll put in a ton of time because like that's the search. And you only have to hire one person. And that's where I'll actually put in time to like get intros or like talk to that person or like use social capital essentially. Like, hey, I really need to talk to this guy. Like, please, you know.
What's
So
your strategy? So with that list, I find that introducing like the best person first can be dangerous because the hiring manager isn't calibrated. They don't know exactly what they want. Do you run through some hood rats first before you go to like the ones? Like, what is your strategy there?
we usually start with twos. We start with twos because it's like, I don't even know if this note works. I don't even know what the response rate is for this function. Like, I start with the twos, make sure everything's working. And then I move to the 1.5s and I want to intro and speak to the 1.5s first. Yeah, usually 3 or 4 weeks in, we go to the ones. But yeah, you want to make sure the interview panel knows what they're doing. You want to make sure like all the materials are working. You want to make sure as a recruiter, you have a good pitch and you've answered all their questions. Like usually those first couple calls, they'll ask me stuff I don't know. And then on the next client update, it's like, these are the 6 things I don't know, or I need these materials. Yeah. But I don't start with those people unless I really know the client already and I really know the function, then I will. Cause it's like, yeah, like for ZocDoc at this point, we've done 12 searches with them. I'll start with the ones at this point.
Yeah, because the trust is there. They're calibrated. Like, you know the company super well. And so all of that stuff like makes it like, okay, we can just like cut to like what we think is the best from the beginning. But it's a good reminder even for me. I've had this happen on a couple searches recently to where it's like, I know the ideal person off the get-go. But introducing them first has almost never resulted in a hire. And it's not that they're not the right fit. I actually think that they are. It's more that the company wasn't ready for that person to be interviewed at that moment in time.
Mm-hmm. I think that's totally true. I mean, this is a whole other search thing that I don't know people find interesting, but everyone wants to get to market immediately because by the time they get to you, they've tried it internally, they've tried their networks. Like no one wants to pay the fee for a search firm. So it's like you're only working on the harder subset of C-suite hires to be made because they tried doing it without you for like a while in many cases. But before you go to market, you have to be totally buttoned up. And like people really don't do this, but like you need a role spec. You need to know like the org chart, like what is the client's pitch for this person that is compelling to the market given their opportunity set of all the other things. Like that stuff needs to be totally buttoned up because then you end up talking to some of the best possible people that should be the placements and you didn't have any of your shit together and then you don't get a second chance and they're gone. So I don't know. I spend probably 2 weeks up front doing all that stuff with the client.
Yeah.
And again, I'm hyper honest. I'm like, all right, you're trying to go after these people. The comp is too low. You cannot recruit them for these numbers. So like, I'm not going to go after them because it's a waste of their time. And like, it's just not going to work. You know what I mean? Or like your value proposition for how interesting this role is, given the opportunity set of this candidate pool, you can't recruit them. Like we either need to change this org chart or we need to pitch this in a very different way or something. But I'm really honest about what I think will work and not work.
Yeah. And when you submit those things to the client, what's that conversation like? Because like, being truthful while highly moral and usually the fastest way possible is oftentimes met with deep resistance. So like when you say like we need to change comp, like how does that go?
I believe in being polarizing. Like I think I'm polarizing to a degree. I think good founders are polarizing. I think Vinod's highly polarizing. Like I just think it's good because then the people that do opt in really opt into a real version of whatever your thing is. But I'm the same way on a pitch as I am with the client. Like, there's no like bullshitty sales pitch thing. And then I'm like a different person once I am the same person the whole way through. So they opt in. And it's like, if they don't want honesty or they don't want me to tell them the truth or they just want me to do whatever they tell them, don't work with me. Like, that's fine. But like, I'm like here to like actually help. And ultimately, I will do what the client wants. But as I've gotten older, or as I've done this more, or as I've got my own validation and stuff, I'm increasingly stern about stuff that I think is a gigantic waste of time for both parties. Like in many cases, I will say upfront, this path we're going to go down is going to lead this to this place, and it's not going to work. And they'll be like, I want to do it anyway. And I'll be like, fine, you're paying me, I'll do it. And then we waste 2 months and no one wins. And like, I'm more stern about it now, I'd say, than I used to be. I used to like say it and then, I work for them. So cool, I'll go do it. But it just wastes everyone's time. And like, I push harder now.
Can you guys see why me and Ted are friends now? This is like,
I can
this
see
is
it.
why Ted, you're like, this is like, you're one of the best relationships I have because it's just like, this is who the man is. And there's no filter, but as you have gotten, we've known each other for a while now. You've gotten a little bit better at like polishing the edges of making it less blunt when you do speak the truth. Where can people find you, Ted?
Yeah, I don't know. You can email me at ted@opalpartners.io. I have a website I think it's Opal Partners or something, Opal Search Partners. Yeah, opalsearchpartners.com.
Dope. All right, Ted, thanks for the time, brother.
Yeah, thank you.